Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky back again with my plans and pans. Well, it was a busy week in Washington, and one of the most important things we did was to pass the Postal Service Reform Act. The Postal Service has been beleaguered for years, and I guess so have so many consumers felt the result of that, not getting mail on time. But a number of big changes that were made are so incredibly important. For one thing, for retirees, they can now join Medicare. I was surprised to learn that they weren't on Medicare when they retired, but now they will be going forward. And it also ends what I think is it was for many years a very absurd policy that required the Postal Service to prepay for the retiree pensions 75 years in advance. In other words, put money aside for pensions 75 years hence, meaning postal workers that aren't even born yet. It made no sense, but it certainly did diminish the revenue available to the Postal Service. Was it so they didn't have to compete with some of the commercial operators? I don't know, but in any case, it sure seems that way. It also says that there will be 6 days of delivery. Well, that's important because you know that the postmaster, the U.S. postmaster, DeJoy, wanted to move it back to 5 days. And it will also say that there will be an online opportunity for anyone to go check the Postal Service to find out where the mail is. So there'll be more transparency, and that is a really good thing. Another really great bill, this was sponsored by Sherry Bustos from Illinois, would end forced arbitration clauses. It would make them illegal for victims of sexual harassment or violence. You know, what that means is that it will affect more than 60 million Americans who have been subject to forced arbitration, meaning that the bosses actually could set up policies that made it almost impossible for them to get any justice. The fact that they're eliminated means, one, they can talk about what happened, the victims can, which they couldn't under forced arbitration, and two, they can go to court. They can actually have justice. So this is really a wonderful thing for workers who have been subject, unfortunately, to sexual harassment or sexual violation of any sort. This week, we celebrated 50 years of the Pell Grant. It is the largest single grant to help lower income students be able to go to college and to stay in college. It's about $6,500 a year. And you know that doesn't really go that far anymore. In fact, when in 1980, the Pell Grant covered about 75% of the cost of a year at college. And now it's a much smaller amount. And so there's a lot of support, bipartisan support, for actually doubling the Pell Grant. We saw even, as I say, Republicans as well as the Democrats that would support it. So there's a lot of work to be done, and there's not legislation yet to do it, but there's a lot of momentum behind that because it's so hard to afford college. And as I've mentioned before, we're one of the only developed countries in the world that doesn't have college education for free. And in my view, this is one of the things that really puts in jeopardy our competitive advantage around the world. You know, we want to be able to have our young people and even older people get the kind of education that they need. This is also National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness. Despite a great deal of success in addressing HIV/AIDS, it is also the fact that 1 out of every 2 gay and bisexual Black men seems to be susceptible to getting HIV/AIDS. And the reason it seems is they don't have access to the drug called PrEP, which if you get a shot once a month or a pill every single day, seems to be a prevention. And so it's really important to make sure that PrEP is available and is actually accessed and used by Black men. And so this is Awareness Month to make sure that those numbers go way, way down, since there is what seems to be a really effective prevention. This week I participated in a rally press conference in favor of we call one fair wage. Did you know that in the United States of America and in the federal government, that tip workers can be paid, people who rely on tips for their wages. The minimum wage for them, it's a sub-minimum wage of $2.13 an hour. The presumption being that they would make up to the minimum wage through tips, which doesn't always happen. And so there is a big movement around the country, and there are lots of restaurants that actually do pay $15 an hour and have one fair wage, and the tips would be on top of that. And that's what restaurant workers are asking for. But the fact that this $2.13 an hour still remains on the books, and that there are still so many workers in restaurants that make so little money, that's what this press conference was about. But the timing was also connected to a money that is going to be going to help struggling restaurants around the country with, for the second time, additional federal dollars to help them. And these workers were saying, that we were standing with, were saying, well, if you're going to help the restaurants and you're going to bail out the restaurants at this difficult time, and it is a difficult time for restaurants, then what about the workers? Isn't it time to get rid of that tip wage? And isn't it time to do something for the workers as well as the restaurant owners? And so, there's a lot of push. The city of Washington, D.C. itself, the District of Columbia, is about to pass an ordinance calling for one fair wage, getting your tips, and $15. So this is happening in many more places around the country. And then I wanted to talk to you about the Republican National Committee. Now, normally I don't talk about what any party is doing as a political matter, but the fact that the Republican National Committee decided to essentially excommunicate Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger from the party because of their willingness to participate in the January 6th commission looking at the insurrection that took place, the attack on the Capitol. And in the resolution to do that, to Cheney and Kinzinger, they also said that what happened on January 6th was legitimate political discourse. Just incredible. We have never seen an attack like that. And of course, the commission itself that they're on is continuing to issue subpoenas, is continuing to find more and more information of what really happened that day. Of course, people actually died, and there was a real desecration of our Capitol and an effort to overturn the outcome of the election and to interfere with the smooth transfer of power. This week, I introduced legislation to allow for the unionization of congressional staff. As a union member myself, and as a growing movement around the country for workers to organize, it makes good sense to me to allow for what this would do would allow each congressional office to be a bargaining unit of employees. So I think that it has a good chance of passing, and I know that staff all over Capitol Hill is very interested in seeing that happen. I also introduced a bill called the Part-Time Workers Bill of Rights. I have a number of co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, and Elizabeth Warren has introduced it into the Senate. And so what this would do is see that part-time workers and full-time workers would essentially have the same opportunities. They would have the same wages. Obviously, hours would differ, but the same wage rate. They would have the same benefits. They would have access, the part-time workers would have access to stable working hours, family and medical leave. So to have parity, equality, in many ways between the part-time and the full-time workers, who often are considered really like second class workers. And yet there are a number of employers who would prefer to just have part-time workers so they don't have to provide the same access to benefits. And we think it's time to end that kind of exploitation. Oh, COVID. Okay, so, the at-home COVID tests are still available. And it's a reminder that you can go to covidtest.gov or call 1-800-232-0233. 1-800-232-0233, and you can get 4 free tests mailed to you, sent to you via the Postal Service. And also, regarding COVID, you know that Governor Pritzker said that he plans to lift the state mask mandate by the end of this month. It should start in March. Also, in Illinois, there were 5,789 new cases reported yesterday, but that is down from 23,900 on January 31st. So really, in about a month, that's a pretty dramatic change. So let's hope continue to go in that direction. In the meantime, please take care of yourself, remain safe, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.